Welcome to the Series Sweep podcast, where we're breaking down each and every single Dodgers series for the 2020 season. You can find me, your host, Eric Eulau, at EEULAU on Twitter. You can find me under the same handle on Instagram. Feel free to drop in the comments. Let us know how you feel about this Dodgers team in this 4-game set they just finished up with the San Diego Padres, the Friars. They end up with a series split 2-2 after a rough, disastrous catastrophe of a first 2 games offensively for the Dodgers. The bullpen looked great. The starters, Ross Stripling looked okay in Game 2, but I thought May looked really good in Game 1. And then games 3 and 4, Wednesday night and tonight, the bats heat up, including Mookie Betts with not 1, not 2, but 3 home runs tonight. So there are your game scores. Game 1, Dodgers lose 1-2. Couldn't get anything going offensively. They scored 1 run in the bottom of the first, and that was it. That was it. They could not back Dustin May. Dustin May, who pitched great. Those 2 walks killed him. Hosmer ends up getting that game-winning what ended up being the game-winning RBI with runners on first and second. Just a great piece of hitting from a veteran. Nothing you can really blame Dustin May on there. And I think the big killer for the Dodgers in that Game 1 was they had the bases loaded twice, and brought none across. The first time was in that first inning. The second time in the fourth. The fourth, they had 0 outs. 0 outs. Rios hits into a double play, and they don't get anything across. So when you have an opportunity like that and you have bases loaded and you can't get anybody across, that's on you. You don't deserve to win that game. I was not surprised they lost that game. It's going to happen when you put that many guys on base and you strand them out there. Game 2 got a little weird in the sense of the errors for the Dodgers, allowing the Padres to get those base runners on, get the momentum going, and obviously it's capped off with Manny Machado just hitting a massive grand slam into left center against his former team. Although I would say it was a fling. It was short. Machado's not, when 20 years from now, you're not going to think about Manny Machado as one of these legacy Dodgers, but he is a former Dodger, so that really hurt in that second game. I think the big thing, the pivotal play that really slowed things down was Taylor getting called out at home in the bottom of the second. He should have slid. Hedges did his job with the Posey rule, gave him a lane to slide. Taylor did not slide, took a really awkward knee into Hedges, which Hedges clearly wasn't happy with, and neither was Eric Hosmer, and they let Austin Barnes, who was on deck, and Chris Taylor know about it. Chris Taylor, he doesn't have a history with guys. Wasn't a smart play. I think if he could do it over again, he would slide. And the reason that was so big in the bottom of the second is what happens in the top of the third, that grand slam. So that was just absolutely huge, a pivotal play in that series. The Padres go on to win that game 6-2. Ross Stripling looked okay in the first couple innings, but I think that's going to happen when you just saw a team a week ago. They're going to be pretty used to you. They know what's coming. They know what your sequencing is. They know where you're going to throw and what counts. And that definitely came to the top of the table on Game 2. Game 3. And the reason I mentioned, that the Padres saw Dustin May last time when we played them in San Diego last week. They saw Ross Stripling. Someone they did not see was Tony Gonsolin. Tony Smokes. The only thing I love Tony Gonsolin. The only thing I gotta say, I'm more of a dog person than a cat guy. Tony Gonsolin is really into cats, borderline strangely into cats. But hey, as long as he keeps pitching like that, he can be a cat guy all he wants. He pitched great, set a new career high for strikeouts with 8, had the Padres off balance, and the Dodgers offense backed him. And I think for Gonsolin, he recovered after that first inning when he gave up back-to-back singles with no out. And you're starting to go, oh my God, it's going to happen for a third straight game. This Padre team is going to get us. They're going to get us early. We're going to lose this series. Oh my God, this is horrible. I didn't think they'd be this good. He calmed down. He settled in. And I think what was the chemistry-changing moment, and which will be our chemistry-changing moment for this series was the Barnes safety squeeze in the bottom of the fifth to get him that second run. I thought it was a great call by manager Dave Roberts. I love seeing Chris Taylor bunt in a previous at-bat in that inning, and I think that moment got the Dodgers going because it was a departure from just trying to bang home runs and just grinding out the first couple of games and just not getting it done offensively. So I think that provided an incredible spark for the Dodgers. I think that really got them rolling. I think it culminated in that 3-run blast that Justin Turner hit to really put the game away. That safety squeeze by Austin Barnes was huge. And Dodger fans, as Matt Miller 818 comments on Twitter, good things happen when the Dodgers bunt. Absolutely. It was great to see. I don't think they should bunt all the time. I think there's an overcorrection now where people just want to see bunting like crazy. But that was a great opportunity to get some offense going and to just get the wheels turning after what had just been a horrible 23 innings of offensive degradation by the Dodgers. That is our chemistry changing moment of the series, is Austin Barnes. And I think the quote of the series also goes hand in hand like that. Oral Hershiser, don't change the plan, just hope for better luck. He said that, I believe, between the second and third innings in Game 3 when the Dodgers still could not get it going. Cody Bellinger was lining out, a lot of hard hit balls into outs. And it was echoing what a lot of the local press has been talking about, the OC Register, the LA Times, even Dave Roberts, is, we're not going to deviate from what we've been doing. We're going to keep attacking the at-bats one step at a time like we have been, and we're just going to stick to the plan, trust the process. This is a good team. This is a team that has won a bajillion games in the last 3, 4, 5 seasons. This is a NL West division team that has won 6, 7 in a row, and they certainly know what they have there. So I appreciate that they stuck with it, but I liked the variation. I like that rather than giving the extra day of rest to the starters, which is what they did. That was a nice byproduct of that, the Tony Gonsolin start. But it really did is gave the Padres a different wrinkle. It was very Gabe Kapler-esque, a bit of gamesmanship by the Dodgers in this Padres series of, we're not just going to roll out another starter that you may have already seen or someone you already prepared for. We're going to roll out a brand new guy that you haven't seen and see what happens. And I think that was a big reason why they won. Gonsolin pitched his heart out. I think he deserved that win. I think it's, besides that Yankees game last year in interleague play, I think that's probably the best game that Gonsolin's pitched in his brief career as a starter for the Dodgers. And Game 4 is one of those times you're just happy to be a baseball fan. The Dodgers mopped the floor 11-2, but it didn't start out that well because you had Tommy Pham and Eric Hosmer go back-to-back, or Hosmer and Pham, in that order, go back-to-back, and you're thinking to yourself, like in Game 3, with the back-to-back singles that Gonsolin gave up, you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, this is happening again. Urias doesn't have it, even after he struck out the first hitter after walking the first hitter in the Giants series. You're panicking again. We got to win this series. We have to at least split this thing to stay at least within a half a game behind the Colorado Rockies. Next thing you know, that bottom of the first, the Dodgers respond, and Seager hits that home run after Betts gets hit by a pitch, which was fantastic. And I think the way the Dodgers came back and just started mashing home runs and just the way the offense caught fire, I think is very indicative of everything that happened in that fifth inning from the previous game with Barnes and that sacrifice squeeze that got the offense moving. And that's what this Dodger team needed. And then tonight is one of those nights where you saw the potential of what this lineup can do. You had Betts hit 3 home runs. I believe that was his 6th 3-home run game. There was only 2 other players. One of them was Sammy Sosa. The other player I did not remember, so I'm sorry if that's some Hall of Famer from the 30s or 20s. No offense, just didn't remember your name. It's a little easier for someone who's almost 30 years old to remember Sammy Sosa's name. I mean, no offense, good sir. The bats heat up. You see the series score there, 20 runs to 10. A little misleading due to the 9-run differential they put up tonight. If you take that away, it's Dodgers 9, Padres 10 for the series for the first 3 games. It shows you how big of a struggle that was, how challenging this Padres team is. We said it after the last series sweep after the Padres series in San Diego. This team is absolutely legitimate. I was completely wrong. They have the starting pitching, and the bullpen, which everyone thought was going to be a strength, should come along. No Kirby Yates, who is an incredibly talented closer. Got a lot of Cy Young votes last year for a closer, which I thought was very impressive. Chris Paddock got knocked around a little bit tonight, but they have the starters. Patino, their other young guy, who besides Mackenzie Gore, who's still in AAA for the Padres, is another big up-and-coming arm for them. I know he had some weird mop-up duty, but that kid is talented. You saw some of that before Peterson took him deep in that San Diego series. This Padres team is absolutely legit, and I love how athletic they are, and that gets us to our Steve Pearce Award, which goes to the Padres manager, Jace Tingler. The way he set up the small ball, the way his pitchers were attacking Dodger hitters, the way that they run the base paths, and I love the back-to-back bunts. I thought that absolutely took some cojones. I respected the hell out of that. That was in game 3. That was in the Ross Stripling start. I respected the hell out of game 2 with that Ross Stripling start. I respected the hell out of that they went back-to-back bunts, and then even had Tatis with runners on first and second. They even had Tatis try to bunt the first pitch. Absolute respect. Steve Pearce Award, the guy, kind of a no-name manager who's making a name for himself now, but that would be Jace Tingler. You see our stat of the series, 17 runs. That is 17 runs in the last 2 games of this series after absolutely struggling and putting up 3 runs in the first 2 games. Those 17 runs, that shows you what this team can do. And Cody Bellinger isn't even hitting. Max Muncy isn't hitting. The guys who are hitting, Turner, AJ Pollock, Mookie Betts, and one of the heroes from tonight's game, Corey Seager, who DH coming back from that lower back discomfort. That was what they graded as. Luckily did not go on the IL, but he came back tonight and immediately paid dividends in the first inning with that home run. Incredible stuff. Love to see Corey Seager back. Chris Taylor, though, deserves a lot of credit for fielding shortstop at a very high level while Corey Seager was gone, providing timely hitting. And Chris Taylor is a guy who never really gave up in some late inning hit situations. He was still trying to grind out at-bats, even though you could feel it, you could smell it, especially the last few innings of Game 2, that the Dodgers were just not into it. And it was, screw this, let's get to tomorrow, I'm done with this game. But Chris Taylor was still working the counts, trying to get hits, not just giving the game away, which I think a couple guys on the Dodgers did. But the Corey Seager, seeing him just back to DH and how hot this team has been, or those handful of guys, and they haven't even played their best baseball yet. You have their 2 best starters, Clayton Kershaw, Walker Buehler. Kershaw, 1 good start, 1 bad start. That last one against the Giants really hurt, but it is what it is. Walker Buehler, a 4.4 ERA going into this series against the Angels. You got to get more from him, but only half the lineup's hitting. The starters have been hit and miss at times. The bullpen has been, for the most part, consistently lights out. You see that bullpen ERA, 0.00 for the series. No runs, nada, zip, zilch, bagel, nothing. Love to see that. Blake Trinan looked really good. Brusdar Graterol with a huge appearance in Game 3 last night. That slider to get the final out against Machado diving away. Man, Machado has just been all over some Twitter pitch videos. But hey, he's getting paid $300 million a year, I'm sure, or $300 million over his career with his contract with the Padres. So I'm sure he can deal with a little Twitter video here and there. The ERA was pretty solid. You see it down there, 1.5. Didn't give up a ton of runs. I liked what I saw out of the pitching staff. I think those first 2 losses a lot of that's on the offense. And in Game 2, you had a rare error by Turner on one of those bunts, and then an error by Ross Stripling, which opened the door for the Padres. And yet another reason to respect them is once the door was cracked open just a little bit, and the Padres attacked. Chemistry changing moment in the series where we talked about that, the Barnes safety squeeze. 17 runs in the last 2 games of the series. I can't stress enough how I think the insertion of Tony Gonsolin changed this series around for the Dodgers, gave them something fresh, gave them something new, instead of just rolling out the same old thing, on top of giving Clayton Kershaw and Walker Buehler some extra rest. I think it was a great move. The Padres had not seen Gonsolin like they had seen the other 2 starters. I love that Dave Roberts actually thought outside the box. If you're one of those people who thinks that Andrew Friedman decides everything, then appreciate that Andrew Friedman thought outside the box. And as Dodger Dylan 32 reminds us, friendly reminder, Mookie Betts is a Dodger for life. And thank God for that. You saw the talent tonight. 3 home runs came up in every big spot. And if you look at the batting lineup for tonight, something to notice, and I think something that was very important for this outcome of this game, is there was a crucial moment here where when the lineup turned over, instead of Jock Peterson batting and trying to get an RBI in, it was Mookie Betts, a contact hitter. And that was great to see. That is another reason why Mookie Betts should always be batting leadoff. I know it's been much talked about. Newspapers, Twitter, everywhere, everyone's talking about it. Let Mookie hit leadoff consistently. I think that's where he's most comfortable. I think that really helps the Dodgers lineup. I am completely done, and I think a lot of fans are, with the Jock Peterson experience at leadoff. I think a lot of people are done with Jock Peterson to begin with. I know the 2 home run game against San Diego was nice. I think we've seen the floor of Jock Peterson. I think we've seen the ceiling. The ceiling is the 2017 World Series MVP. Coulda, shoulda, woulda, but the Astros cheated. And anyway, the rest is history. But he played great in that World Series. However, not a contact guy, can only hit against righties. Swings for the fences, is really easy to attack. It's great. It's great that we brought him up. I understand he's a farm guy for us, a former top prospect for the Dodgers, a guy we thought was going to be a 2020 guy that just never materialized. I'm sure he'll look great somewhere else. It's not. He and Kike Hernandez are 2 guys that you really don't expect to be on this roster next year. But Jock Peterson, certainly, we've seen where his floor is. So going into the next series, tomorrow night we start a 3-game set against the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim of Orange County. That is Clayton Kershaw and Sandoval. And then Saturday, you have Walker Buehler and Andrew Heaney. Remember, Andrew Heaney was a former Dodger who he flipped to the Angels for Howie Kendrick, who we previously acquired for the Marlins in a deal that brought back Austin Barnes and Kike Hernandez. Look it up on the transaction page. Interesting stuff. Sunday, you have Dustin May and Julio Teheran, 2 guys that throw a lot of strikes. That should be a fun one. The Dodgers, looking in the standings right now, still behind the Rockies. The Rockies are 12-6. The Dodgers are 12-7. There is a chance the MLB playoff format includes winning percentage for the top 8 teams rather than total wins and losses, just based upon everything going on with the pandemic and teams missing games. You have the Marlins obviously missed a huge slew of games. The Phillies, the Yankees, go on down the list. The Cardinals, the Brewers. So they may go with winning percentage. So it's important. I know we're not really used to it, to check the winning percentage, not just the loss column and not just the win column. Because right now the Rockies are number 1, and that is because of winning percentage. You have the Padres behind at 11-9. They are frisky. We know that. This team could do some things. They can make some moves. The Rockies, getting back to them, they play Texas and then Houston. And then for the Padres, it's Arizona and then Texas. So they have a pretty soft slate. The Diamondbacks, a team that I thought was going to really challenge the Dodgers this year, has struggled so far early on. And then the Dodgers, Angels, and then the Mariners. They'll play the Mariners at home for 2, and then they will fly to Seattle for 2. So it's technically a 4-game series, 2 home, 2 road. Maybe that's technically 2 series that are each 2 games. I don't know. That Mariners team has not been very good at all. You'd like to see the Dodgers take at least 3 or 4, but they got to execute. Hopefully this is just the start of the ramp for this offense, and they're just going to get really, really, really hot. Injury updates for you Dodger fans. Will Smith left last night's game with neck soreness, which he claims is from the collision at the plate last week against the Padres in San Diego. He's day-to-day, probably not going to go on the IL. Expect to see Austin Barnes, especially with how hot Austin Barnes is now. Probably the hottest that he's ever been in his life, maybe since he had that 300 average season. But I think Barnes has earned at least another 4 or 5 days straight of starts, especially with Will Smith out, and especially with Clayton Kershaw, that's Austin Barnes' pitcher. That is the battery. That is Clayton Kershaw's catcher of choice, is Austin Barnes. And then you have Alex Wood, who's going to have a bullpen session on Saturday and then throw a simulated game that is per the Orange County Register. And then you have Joe Kelly's suspension, not an injury, but his suspension was reduced from 8 games to 5 games on appeal. Obviously, a lot of opinions right now on players getting suspended and how long they should get suspended for after the A's-Astros dust-up with Astros coach Alex Citron and Lariano, the A's player. we don't have a long enough podcast for me to get into how I really feel about that. But I think it's absolute BS that the Astros coach didn't get suspended for the rest of the season, especially since it's the Astros. That is just systemic in that franchise, that they have some real actual issues. I think it's incredible that Bregman, Altuve, and Springer have just completely struggled. Correa's hit the ball well, but I love that those three guys, who are not very remorseful about the entire situation, although Correa wasn't either, are really struggling this year. However, they're really talented hitters. I think they'll bounce back. So Friday night, Clayton Kershaw, Sandoval. Saturday, Walker Buehler against former Dodger prospect Andrew Heaney. Sunday, Dustin May and Julio Teheran. You have the 110 Sunday, Saturday at 6:40, Friday at 6:40. Thank you so much for watching. Let's hope for another Dodgers series win. Like I said, you can find me on Twitter at EEULAU. You can email me, ericulo@gmail.com. You can text me if you have my number, whatever you want to do. However, I appreciate all you guys watching. Thank you so much for the support, and go Dodgers.